Hello, my name's Al and today I'm going to show you how to set up your rear derailleur. The hardest thing about setting your gears up is knowing what does what. One of the best things is you hardly need any tools. In fact, a Phillips number 2 screwdriver and some Allen keys is pretty much all you'll need. In order to set up your rear derailleur properly, you need to know what all the adjustments do. There's 3 main adjustments. First one is the limit screws. Now these are these 2 screws here. The top one is labelled H and the bottom one labelled L. So the top one labelled H is for your highest gear, so that is the smallest sprocket, and L is for your lowest gear, which is the biggest sprocket here. So these control the range that the mech can move across the cassette. We need to set them so that the chain can drop easily into all the sprockets, the complete range of the cassette, without going off either end. So off onto the frame, or probably the worst thing you can do, stuffing it into your rear wheel. So that's your limit screws. Other adjustments are cable tension. Now this is adjusted mainly here at the cable clamp, but once you're in the ballpark, then you can adjust it using the barrel adjuster, which we have here. Final adjustment is here, which is the B tension screw. Now this adjusts the distance between the upper jockey wheel or guide pulley and the sprockets themselves. Now this is always adjusted in this gear that we're in here, so that is the smallest chainring at the front and the largest sprocket at the back, so first gear basically. Before we start twiddling screws, there's a few things which we need to check. Obviously we need to make sure that everything's in good working order, so that the mechs aren't seized or anything like that. Then there's 2 key things which are probably the biggest cause of issues with your gears. And they are alignment and the cables. So with your rear derailleur, you need to make sure that it is hanging perfectly straight and in line with your sprockets here. If it's not, your gears are never going to work properly. You can get the alignment of the hanger, the gear hanger, which is here, checked by a bike shop. They'll have a gear hanger alignment tool. If it's slightly out, they can tweak that and make it straight. If it's very bent, then you'll be looking at a replacement hanger, which is probably going to cost you about 15 quid. So with the alignment sorted, then the cable is a key part of getting your gears set up. It needs to be smooth. If it's dirty, then the cable isn't going to run smoothly, and you're never ever going to get your gears set up properly. So invest in a new cable, and when you do that, it's always a good idea to replace this final loop of outer cable as well, because this is what gets contaminated and causes a lot of issues. In order to show how you set up the limit screws, what we're going to do is we're going to take the cable tension out of the equation altogether. So we're going to shift down to top gear at the back, so that's the smallest sprocket, and then we're going to undo the cable clamp. So we'll have removed the cable from the equation altogether. Okay, so now we can see that the mech has this available amount of travel, and the only thing that's stopping it from coming off the end of the cassette at either end are the limit screws. If we adjust these, so say for instance we take the high screw and we screw it in, you'll see the chain no longer gets to the final gear, top gear. Just won't drop down there. So if we back that out, you'll see it now shifts onto that gear, onto that high sprocket, and we just check that it will fall down easily, just using the spring tension from the mech itself. And we can also check that we can't pull it off the end of the cassette. So there's no way that chain can come off the end. Same goes for the first gear, for the largest sprocket. Just making sure that this upper jockey wheel, this guide pulley, is perfectly in line with first gear when we push it up here. So it's not noisy, it's not going to override the cassette, and you can access that gear easily. So that's the limit screws set. Now they are set, you should never have to change them again unless you change your wheel or something gets knocked out of alignment. Any adjustment that you make in the future, if your gears go out, should be all to do with cable tension. Okay, so next we're going to set the cable tension. Now we're in this smallest sprocket, top gear at the back already, the chain's resting on that, so just make sure that there's no further clicks in the shifter, shifted all the way down into that gear. Now before we clamp it, we're going to wind this barrel adjuster in, going to wind it all the way in and then back it out about a turn and a half, just to give us a bit of adjustment to play with. Okay, so now we're going to clamp the cable. You need to make sure that the cable is routed correctly through the cable clamp. So on this Shimano mech, you have a small arrow to indicate where the cable goes in, and it's a 4mm Allen key. Pull it nice and tight with your hand, and then tighten the cable clamp. So now we're going to see how that cable tension is. We're going to turn the pedals and we're going to click up one gear. Okay, so the chain has moved one gear. You might be able to hear that's a little bit noisy. Reason for that is that this upper jockey wheel isn't perfectly in line with the sprocket that the chain's on. So in order to move it further up, it needs to go further this way, we're going to tighten the cable tension. So we're winding the barrel adjuster out and we're looking directly down over the chain, and we're looking to get that upper jockey wheel perfectly in line with that sprocket. So the second sprocket, second but highest gear. You're here now, it's nice and quiet. And that should be our indexing sorted. You should now find that for each click of the shifter, the chain moves one sprocket. Now you may have noticed there, on the lower end of the cassette, the chain's actually trying to overshift, trying to shift 2 sprockets at a time, and it's a bit slow on the way back down. Reason for that will be that the cable tension is a little bit too high. So we're going to back that off half a turn. Maybe a little bit more, just to make sure we're getting one gear with every click, like so. If we have too little tension, you'll see the chain will struggle to get onto some gears. So you see there, it's not quite getting up onto first gear. So we'll just set that again, all the way back down to the highest gear, click up one, and then we're adding tension till that upper jockey wheel is perfectly aligned. And just run through the gears. A little bit high, back that off. And that's your cable tension set. The final adjustment is the B tension. So as I explained earlier, this is the screw here, that's your B tension screw, and that controls the distance between this upper jockey wheel and the sprockets. Now this is always set, as I think I may have said earlier, smallest chainring, biggest sprocket, so first gear. Now as you wind this in, it will move the mech away from the sprockets, and as you back it off, it will move it nearer. With a Shimano rear derailleur like this, you want that sprocket to be as close to that upper jockey wheel as you can. Too close though and it'll rumble, and it'll sound terrible. So you want it as close as you can without it touching. If you've got a Campagnolo rear mech, then you're looking for between a 5 and a 7mm gap between that upper jockey wheel and that first sprocket. And once you've set that up, you're all done. So that's it. Your gears should all be shifting nice and slick now, so you're ready to hit the road. See you next time. Thanks for watching. Cheers.